Sentences are like the cells of communication. Each one has a nucleus. It is the verb, it is the principal action or thrust of the sentence. And around that action, around that thrust, there is the objects and the subjects and the prepositional phrases and the dependent clauses and the rest of the parts of speech. But there is always one principal verb. And if there are, then in that case, any more verbs after it, those verbs are acting as auxiliaries. They're acting as helpers. And I have 4 different prominent categories of mistakes that my students make, all related to the question of what to do with those other verbs in the sentence. Where only one can be conjugated, the other one has to be either in the infinitive or in the gerund. And the errors manifest in different ways, but these are the 4 categories as I have them annotated. 2 consecutive verbs, when they say, for example, I like travel, porque están pensando, me gusta viajar. Pues I like viajar, travel. Pero falta tú, falta esa palabrita, que es la preposición empotrada en el verbo, to travel. Ese es el infinitivo. So it's the same thing in Spanish as in English. First verb conjugated, second verb infinitive. Just remember that the second verb in the infinitive has to have to. If you don't have the to, you're saying what's called a bare infinitive. And the bare infinitive, although it is used sometimes, is barely ever used. It's probably better if I just tell you this. Never say the bare infinitive. Always say either gerund or infinitive. Know how to form each one of them. Don't mix them up. And know which one to use when, and you're golden. Now, how do you do all of that? 2 consecutive verbs. People say, I like travel, or I like spend time with my family. No, I like to spend, right? Like to travel, like to spend. In all of these cases, me gusta poner, me gusta pasar, decidí jugar, prefiere ir, prefiere tomar, they are translating them to the bare infinitive. So it sounds like, I prefer take, he prefers go, she was not planning have, I want go. But no, I want to go, plan to have. Tiene que tener esa palabrita, esa preposición. I like to put, vinegar. I like to spend time with my family. I decided to play there. I try not to eat. If I want to go, and look at this last example, I prefer see 1 or 2 channels for create my personal opinion. For create, of course, because they were thinking para crear. Para más verbo, o verbo, para verbo. Only in English you don't have to say para, because para no hace falta, ya tenemos una preposición que es tú, esa preposición empotrada en el verbo, en el infinitivo. I prefer to see 1 or 2 channels to create my personal opinion. I went to the farm for give food to my horse. I went to the farm to give food to my horse. Sí, fui para dar. I met with them for drink a coffee. I met with them to drink a coffee. Quedé para tomar. Verbo, para, verbo. This structure will always be, 99% of the time, verb, infinitive verb. To. I needed 500 euros for buy a laptop. I needed 500 euros to buy a laptop. I needed to buy. Need to buy. I'm here for working and doing my best. It's true that you are here for an activity. You can talk about activity and action as nouns, and thus you can talk about them in the gerund. But when you're describing a plan that you have, if you're describing an intention that is carried out through the course of 2 or 3 verbs, they all need to be sort of chain linked together with infinitives, continuing, concluding the intention. I am here to work and to do my best. I'm going to find some time this weekend for study. I'm going to find some time this weekend to study. I'm going to find to study. I'm going to find to study. It's all part of the plan that they have. Consider this sentence. I want pizza. A subject, verb, and an object. I want to eat pizza. First verb conjugated, second verb infinitive. Now check this out. I want to eat pizza, pero si quiero que tú comas pizza, I want you to eat pizza. And now we're talking about the subjunctive, where in the subjunctive in Spanish, you say a completely different grammatical structure. In English, we are using the same structure, adding an object, right? Now there's 2 characters in the story, me and you, but the wanting of eating is still the same. So the infinitive can still be there because the narrative intentionality is continuing. He wanted that I was part of the company. In English, he wanted me and then infinitive phrase, to be part of the company. They wanted that I be there. They wanted me to be there. I want this company to contract me. I needed her to sign the documents. They need you to pay attention to them. So all of this just to say that the infinitive is much more present and used and useful even than the gerund. But there's another option in English. It is not the infinitive, it is the alternative to the infinitive. ing corresponds to 3 different parts of speech in English. The verb, I am drinking, I am eating, which is the continuous or progressive tense. Adjectives, an interesting book, a satisfying meal, a shocking realization. And finally, as a noun, smoking is prohibited. This smoking is a gerund. It displaces the verb into a noun, so that it's not even a verb anymore. It's just an action or an activity. It's a reference to an action or an activity. The gerund, roughly 2/3 of the mistakes made in this category happened when the student used a bare infinitive instead of a gerund. I like fly. I like flying, or I like to fly. What is be happy? What is being happy? And roughly 1/3 of the mistakes happened because they used the infinitive instead of the gerund. I miss to do sports. This sounds strange to us because no echas de menos para hacer deportes. Echas de menos la acción o la actividad de haber hecho deportes. I miss doing sports. That first verb is referring to the second verb as an activity, not happening as a result of the first verb, not happening in collusion with the first verb, not part of the same narrative intentionality of the first verb, but simply being referred to as an activity. I entered in the company before to finish my MBA. Before to finish? No, before finishing. After a preposition, it's going to be the gerund. Because what comes after preposition? Nouns. And what are we doing with gerunds? We're turning the verbs into nouns. We're turning them into ideas. If you don't have fear of fall in the snow, if you don't have fear of falling in the snow, of is a preposition. After preposition, the noun. And the gerund, the entire gerund phrase, is the one idea. It's the thing, it's the noun, falling in the snow. Last week before this thing, this activity, last week before moving to Paris. There are exceptions to these rules, but I'm giving you the basic 2, the ones that if you get these right, then you're getting 99% of English correct.